The gig economy in India is at its boom, but at what legal cost? Now, imagine you are running a tech startup or a delivery platform like Swiggy, Zomato, and you are all excited to take the leverage of the flexible economy of the gig workers and freelancers in India. Because, guys, there's no doubt that the gig economy is at surge, and that to 17% annually is the rate that has been identified. It is estimated that by the end of 2025, the gig worker economy will be 455 US billion dollar, and the rate of gig workers or the number of gig workers will be 29.5 million by the end of 2029. Now that is the source that is happening. But under this big gig worker economy lies a legal minefield. Now imagine that you classify somebody as a freelancer instead of a contractor. What can be the consequences of this just misclassification? There can be penalties, there can be back pay, there can be government consequences. There are multiple issues that are involved in this. Hi everyone, I'm Sonal Alag, and in today's video we'll be breaking down the gig economy and the laws that are required to be kept in mind while you're working with the gig workers or the freelancers, and the practical tips that are very important. But before I go all technical, tell you the difference between an employee and a freelancer, let me just quickly tell you a real life example. In 2021, hundreds of Swiggy delivery partners went on a strike. Not just in this, it started in the city of Bangalore, but it blew across the country thereafter. Their demand was that they need the basic facilities or the basic privileges that generally an employee is given, that is like accidental insurance, pensions, etc. Because at the moment, the gig economy workers or maybe the Swiggy delivery partners or Zomato delivery partners are not given the benefits that an employee is given. This is still under the radar, this is still under the jurisdictions of the court, and the law is still unfolding. But if you are running a business that involves a lot of gig workers or a lot of freelancers, you have to keep multiple things in your checklist when you are operating the business. Now, as the first segment of this video, I would want to break down the difference between who is an employee and who is an independent contractor. Now, the Indian courts have made this distinguishing factors between employees and freelancer by 3 touch tests. The first one is the control test, which says that who controls the work that is given. Now, what are the controlling factors? The working hours, the working tools, the working parameter. Now, all of this is, if controlled by you, that person is an employee. However, if there is more autonomy that is given to the other person with respect to all these controlling factors that I just mentioned about, the other person is likely to be a freelancer or an independent contractor. The second is the integration test. If the worker's role is integrated into the primary business that you are doing, his exercise or the kind of work he do is the primary pillar of your business, more likely that that person is an employee. However, if the work that he is doing is in the outer peripheral of your business cycle, then that person is likely to be a freelancer. So, in 2004, in this judgment of Ram Singh versus Chandigarh, factors like control, integration, wages, provident fund, all the benefits are categorized to define whether that person is an employee or a freelancer. Now, the third and the most important touch test is the economic independence. So, if that person is solely working for you, only taking your projects, only delivering to you, under your instructions, and the instructions are so that that person cannot take any other work, guys, come on, no matter whatever you name them, they are your employees. However, if that person has his or her own setup, is working with multiple clients, giving same services to other people, there's no restriction on it whatsoever, that person can be categorized as a freelancer. So in reality, it is the relationship that counts and not the nomenclature that counts. So if you misclassify a person as a freelancer, no matter the role is that of an employee, there can be innumerable consequences. You can face legal battles, lawsuits, you can face government penalties, you will have to pay back all the previous dues, You will also have to pay him all the employee benefits like provident fund, gratuity, which we'll be talking about in detail a little later. So you cannot just very misclassify a person and think that he's just a freelancer, I don't have to give him anything. Now in this second segment, we will be talking about some important laws that you should know as a business owner if you're working with the gig workers or the freelancer. Now, though India does not have a unified freelancer law till now, which many countries do have, but there are major regulations in law that you need to keep in mind as a business owner. And the first and foremost is the Contract Labor Regulation and Abolition Act 1970. This was one of the oldest, which was ideally made because for people who are employing contractors to get the workers. Now, employee workers through contractors was the criteria for this law, but now it has an even wider ambit to be governed. Now, if you are hiring a contractor who is in turn hiring workers and you are engaged with more than 20 of such workers or contractors, you become the principal employer. And as a principal employer, you have the responsibility or the obligation to give them like the basic facilities like getting their payments made on time, no matter by you or by the contractor, but it's your obligation. Then obviously there should be canteens, there should be restroom, there should be first aid. So the ambit of this CLRA has increased multiple times through various judgments over a period of decades. Now the second important law is the Code on Social Security 2020, which is a game changer, guys. Now this is specially enacted to protect the gig economy. Though this law is enacted but yet is not fully enforced. Now this explicitly recognizes the gig workers and the platform workers. Now the gig workers are basically defined as someone who is earning from outside the traditional employee-employee relationships, like delivery partners is the best example I can give for this. And platform workers are the people who are working via a platform or through aggregators, which also include people like Uber, Ola, who are getting the clientele through an aggregating platform. These are the platform workers. Now, the Social Security Code actually aims to give the basic benefits and social securities to the entire economy of these gig workers. Now, this include like disability, life and disability security, basic insurances, accidental insurance, old age pension. So this is the idea behind this entire code. Now, as a most important factor, this code recognizes or identifies a social security scheme fund for all the gig workers, which is a mix of the contribution by the gig worker and by the aggregating platform and the government. Now, as a gig worker, you might have to contribute 1 to 2% of your annual CTC into the welfare fund. However, the aggregator, that is you, might have to contribute 1 to 2% of your annual turnover, capped at 5% of the amount that you are paying to that gig worker to the welfare fund scheme. Now, this is very important to create a social security for these gig workers. And therefore, you might have to contribute, if you're an aggregator of an e-commerce platform, you might have to contribute to the welfare fund scheme once this code fully comes into enforcement. Now, as a key legal takeaway, A, you need to really keep an eye on all the notifications and the enforcement guidelines that are coming on Social Security Code. And B, in the meantime, you can actually go and register your gig workers or your freelancer on eShram portal of the government, which has been launched recently, not recent now, in 2021, and help them access all the governmental benefits and the social security benefits which are available till now. Now, talking about some other laws, if at all you come a situation where you called somebody a freelancer or a gig worker and it turned out to be a misclassification and the other person becomes an employee, there are several laws that will come into picture. You will have to give them Employee Provident Fund, ESI Act, payment gratuity, payment bonus, etc. So that even the Industries Act would come into picture if that person is recognized as a employee. Now, drum rolls for this. In the state legislations, Rajasthan Gig Workers Act is the first of its kind. In 2023, Rajasthan came up with its own protection act for the gig workers, wherein they made sure that there's a social security scheme fund that is created for all the gig workers, wherein a percentage of every order or every piecemeal work that they do, be the aggregators, platform workers, riders, Ola, Uber partners. So every gig work that they're doing, a percentage of that is going to their welfare scheme. That is the Social Security Scheme Fund. So a key takeaway from this is that if you're running a business which is going in multiple states, make sure that you're keeping an eye on the local laws and not just the central laws. Because obviously Rajasthan is just the first of its kind, but there are many cities and states who are coming into pictures. Karnataka has already brought up a bill which is yet to be enforced, which is on the similar lines. So you have to be very vigilant about the state laws as well. Now, before I quickly switch to the third and the final segment of this video, let me tell you a very interesting real life case study. In 2021, the major litigation has happened over the gig workers' rights protection. Indian Federation of App-based Transport Worker have filed a public interest litigation before the Supreme Court of India, wherein they allege that all these big ride-hailing giants and food delivery partners are actually taking away the fundamental rights of the gig workers. They are not even providing them the basic social security just by merely calling them partners or contractors, because they don't want to give the nomenclature of an employee to them. The case is still unfolding, but let me tell you one thing. The Supreme Court has very, very strongly come up and said that these companies cannot take away the basic social welfare and the social rights of these gig workers, which they as a company need to provide to them. So if you are running such an aggregation based platform or such a job wherein you are handling multiple gig workers or freelancers, make sure that the future is coming wherein you will have to contribute to their benefit, to their welfare schemes, to their social security fund to some extent, because the Supreme Court has really said so. In the final segment of this video, I want to give you actionable insights or pro-legal tips that you need to keep in mind for your business when you are hiring freelancers. Now, in the prior two segments, you have actually understood that what not to do if you're hiring freelancer. But in this segment, I am going to give you some pro tips of what you need to keep in mind when you're working with a freelancer. Now, the first and foremost is to definitely enter into a contract with the freelancer. Now, always have a written independent contractor agreement. And in fact, two states in India, that is Delhi and Karnataka, mandates it by law that you need to have a contractor agreement. Now, in the contractor agreement, have an explicit clause like nothing in this contract intends that you and the other party has an employee-employee relationship. Make it very explicitly clear, because the signing of the contract actually shows the intentions not just yours but also of the other party, that the other party also never intended to be an employee of the company. Regardless of whether the state mandates it or not, it's the best practice, and this document is going to be the key document whenever the dispute arises. Now, the second is avoid treating freelancers like your employees. Guys, you need to give them some independence, some autonomy. You cannot mandate them to work for 10 hours in a day, have a clock in at this and have a clock out at this. You need to be very, very flexible with the timelines. You just need to assign them and tell them that you need it by this time. This freedom or this flexibility is what makes them the freelancer. You cannot have 10 times communication during a day with a freelancer, because obviously the lines are getting blurred and that person could be treated as an employee because you are actually treating him as an employee. Now, a pro tip is that especially remove the clock-ins for the freelancer, and if it's a long-term freelancer, you make it project-based assignment. You make sure that for every project you sign a small contract. It's not a contract, just do it over an email so that the lines are not blurred, and you make it sure that that person is a freelancer and not an employee of the company. Now, as a third pro tip, you need to permit or even encourage freelancers to take more assignment. Come on, guys, a freelancer cannot be just doing your work. So you need to allow that person to take work from other clients as well. Now, if you need exclusivity, then obviously during the project, if you need during some project, if you need exclusivity, keep in mind that the scope and the time is set for that project, and that person is not bound for a long period or to eternity, because obviously he becomes your employees. So you really need to encourage freelancer to take other clients and other assignments as well. Now, the fourth pro tip is that you cannot pay salaries to your freelancers. Guys, freelancer raises invoices for their services, and you pay or clear those invoices for them. Please, it's a major blunder if you're paying salaries to your freelancer, because that is not how it works in ROS. So once you're paying the invoices for the services that the freelancer is supposed to raise on you, keep in mind that you comply by the laws of the freelancer. That is, the major 10% TDS is deducted on every service that you're taking. So make sure that you are complying with all the legal and the taxation regulations at the time of clearing the invoices of the freelancers. Now, the fifth tip is that no employee benefit. Now, when you're working with a freelancer and it's a very long-term arrangement, you're working with the same media marketing partner for, let's say, 5 years, or you're working with a software developer on a freelancer basis for 3 years, you actually want to give them the benefits that you're given to other employees like your stars. But guys, this can actually backfire. You cannot give them the benefits of employees like PPF, gratuity, pension funds, because these will again blow the line and that person will be treated as your employee. So if you want to really get them some benefits, you can actually go to third-party insurance scheme, goodwill policies, give them extra bonuses. You just need to change the nomenclature and you can still pay them or give them those insurances or those welfare schemes and benefits. But please do not give them the same perks that you're giving to an employee, and especially the statutory perks that you're giving to your employees. Now, the sixth pro tip that is very important, that if you're working with multiple gig workers, you need to strengthen your compliance, because obviously auditing now is better than a labor inspector auditing you later. So if you are having multiple gig workers, make sure that you do a compliance audit regularly. Make sure you have a head-on view for all the compliances, all the registrations. If you're employing the gig workers through an intermediary or a third-party contractor, make sure that that marketplace or that contractor is legally compliant with all the laws. And in the end, I would just want to say that this spectrum of law for the gig workers is really developing. So be flexible and keep an eye on all the developments that are happening, be it the local state laws or be it the central legislations. You need to be very vigilant because a lot is changing in this entire sector right now. Another real life example is that it's not just the transport and the delivery companies, even the home service providing platform like Urban Company felt the backlash. Now in 2023-2024, Urban Company's female gig workers went on a big strike, wherein they said that the new policies of the companies is almost like slavery, and they are completely taking away their independence without giving them any benefits of the employee. Even the worker union wrote to the CEO saying that they are under the garb of the platform run business, they are taking away the humanitarian fundamental rights of these people without providing them any employee benefit. Now, in return, actually, Urban Company filed a lawsuit on the gig workers for calling this unnecessary strike. But this caused a lot of public backlash and public criticism. And it also got them into the bad eyes of the nation. So therefore, the gig workers need to be treated like humans at least, and they need to be given the basic fundamental rights, and they need to be given the flexibility to do their business because they are not your employees. If you stuck up with me till the end of this video, let me just give you some brownie tips. Now, after seeing the video till now, if you've realized that you really need to have a freelancer agreement in place which you haven't had till now, These are some very important and relevant clauses that you need to keep in mind while drafting your freelancer agreement. Number one is the scope of work and deliverables. Clearly outline what the freelancer is supposed to do within how much time frame with specific scopes and deliverables. Suppose you are hiring a app developer. You need to clearly mention that you need to develop the UI based app within 3 months with 3 mock trials. There has to be a deadline, there has to be a very specific scope of deliverables. Now, number 2 important clause is the duration and the termination. You need to clearly specify that this contract is till what time period and how and when it will be terminating, or how and when it will be continuing, and till what time. It could be a specific date or it could be till the end of the project. Now, this again tends to set up a freelancer tone. Now, a third very important clause which I've also spoken in the past is the exclusivity clause, wherein you clearly, explicitly mention it that this agreement does not tend to have an employee-employee relationship by either of the parties. This clause is very essential in every freelancer contract that you undertake. Fourth important clause you need to have in the freelancer agreement is the payment terms. As I have said it before, you cannot pay salaries to your contracted employees or freelancers or gig workers. You will be clearing their invoices for the services they are providing to you. That is how the payment terms need to be for a freelancer or for a contracted worker. The fifth of the important clauses is that you need to definitely have an indemnity clause, because you are not providing them with these statutory benefits. You are not giving them any insurances. So therefore, you cannot be responsible for their wrongdoings, if for their accidents, for their anything that happened wrong to them. So you need to have an indemnity clause which keeps you indemnified for the losses that your freelancer or the contracted person worker has occurred. Now, the sixth important clause is the governing law. You need to make sure that the governing law is of the law where your business is, where your setup is, so that it's easier on to you. And the last of these is the non-solicitation clause. Now, non-solicitation clause, I have spoken multiple times about it. I'll just link the reel also over here. Now, non-solicitation clause is basically in employment contracts, to be honest, but you can keep it optional for the freelancer also, like the option is on you whether to include it or not, wherein basically you can, if you have a fear that your freelancer is also in touch with your direct client and there's a chance that person, your freelancer, might steal your ultimate client, you can also keep a non-solicitation clause. Now, what is a non-solicitation clause, how it functions, please go watch the reel, you will get the exact insight onto it. Now, this brings us to the end of the video. I hope you are actually being able to grasp what I said. This entire sector of the gig workers and the freelancers is at a very developing stage. The number of freelancers and gig workers is increasing rapidly, and the laws are also developing rapidly. So make sure you keep an eye on the local development of the laws as well as the central laws, because a lot of states are coming in with protection guidelines and laws protecting the gig workers. If you find this video little knowledgeable, share it with someone who might need it, subscribe to my channel, and do not forget to hit that like button. And I will be seeing you in my next video.